And welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two friends compulsively learn the weirdest things in history that they never thought they wanted to know, and then verbally assault their spouses by telling them the stories they definitely never asked for. And then, after we get our P's and Q's all lined up, we join forces and tell each other the stories we'd only recently learned. I'm host number one. I'm Theresa.
I'm host number two, and I also verbally assault Theresa with my stories as well because neither my P's or Q's are in the alphabet the right way.
Nope. Nope. Yeah, my ducks are not lined up, and I'm pretty sure one's a pigeon.
Facts. Dude, what is that weird bird? Can I pet your dog?
So yeah,
Oh
that's
man,
that's life.
that's exciting.
I
I'm
know, right?
excited
Like
to regurgitate what I've learned.
you say that, and now I'm like like frantically trying to pull up the spreadsheet to figure out who went first last time. I don't even know what story
It was
happened last time.
you. Okay, no, I know.
I started by doing the bombing of Brooking, Oregon, and then you did
Yeah,
Jack the
which
Ripper.
yeah, which you honestly, bombing of Oregon should have gone last on that one because Jack the Ripper's just gnarly.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I don't think that you sat in the shadows for too long on that. You know what
Good.
I mean?
I feel good. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
let me tell you, I am definitely not in the shadows for my story this week. I'm
Well,
closer to the brig for my stories this week.
closer to the brig.
hmm
Oh, I think that's the
That's my
title.
clue. You're welcome. I'll take my stateroom close to the brig, please. So
Well, what are we doing?
does that mean I go first? Yeah,
I
I
think
guess
that
that means
yeah.
I go first, huh? Duh,
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. Okay. All right. So because I went so off the normal trains for me, I decided that this week I would regale you with some light, airy fun.
Okay.
Do you remember several months ago one of us sent it to the other one. I'm not sure which order it went in, or we may have seen it both at the same time. Skippy's 213 things he's no longer allowed to do in the
Yes.
US Army. I'm bringing you Skippy and
Okay.
his list.
But for people who don't exist in the insanity that is our text thread, do you want to explain to the
That's true.
listeners?
Yes, that is what I'm going to do. So,
Hell
my
yes.
sources are his website, skippyslist.com, because that is a
What?
real thing. Uh-huh.
What?
Yep, and I'll send you the link. It's perfect. And then a blog that was written about it by a friend of his called Wild Boar Blog. So, with all that to say, Specialist Skippy served in the US Army in Bosnia in the 90s. He was incredibly clever and like evidently bored out of his mind. But just keep in mind with everything I'm about to tell you, he does make it out of the army unscathed. So just hold that in your noodle noggin.
Okay, that sounds like some brilliant foreshadowing.
Right? Okay, so I don't know if like if I'm sure because of the stories that you've shared in the past, you know that sometimes when you're stationed in certain places, it's very boring
Yeah.
and you're kind of want to find something to do. Well, Skippy was one of those individuals. And here's the best part. Okay, so Skippy, that's just his like nickname, right? But even on his own website, it's really hard to figure out what his actual name is. So, he's Specialist Skippy.
Yeah, have we
He is
confirmed that he's an
basically,
actual person?
yes. So here's the backstory. He is basically a pot stirrer, and while he was stationed in Bosnia, he realized he could have a fair bit of fun because everybody else around him, including his superiors, are a captive audience. So he had started kind of pulling, I don't want to say started pulling pranks, or he started pulling pranks and he also started asking pretty insane questions and tried to pull stuff off in rank and things like that just to see how it would go, just to see what the response of his superiors would be. And eventually it came to the point that weekly he was sending emails home to family and friends, and he would sign off on his email with whatever that week's trouble was.
Hmm.
Whatever he did, whatever he was told he couldn't do, he put that in the list. And after some time, a friend asked if he wouldn't mind if she co compulated them all. Oh my gosh, what
Compiled?
is the right word? Thank you, compulated. Compiled them all into
Please, I
one
hope
solid
it
list.
wasn't
So,
copulated.
no, compiled, compulated. I don't know what, that's not even a real word. I
Computed?
just made it up. No, compiled. We're gonna go with compiled.
Okay.
She compiles them all, or the friend compiles them all into a list, and then kind of starts to send it around to their friends, and it becomes this little joke. And it was always like 213. Initially, it was 100 rules that Skippy can't, of things Skippy's been told no, he can't do, right? Like, Skippy's a bit problematic. 213 things he is no longer allowed to do in the US Army. The problem was, by the time the friends started creating this list, he only had about 30 things. So
Time to get
he
to
had to
work.
get right, he had to get to work. So this is a quote from Skippy to kind of sum up his thoughts. I assure you, everything on this list is something that I personally was instructed not to do, or I witnessed another soldier receive instructions about. Not to say that everything actually happened, it was just discussed. He goes on to say, I either did it myself, got in trouble for it, or commended for it. I B witnessed another soldier do it, or C was spontaneously informed I was not allowed to do it.
You
There's
have quite the
clarification from the above.
reputation. If they're like, hey,
It
and just floating it out there, no parking Humvees in the mess hall.
exactly. Usually when he was spontaneously informed he couldn't do something, he was in fact minding his own business. For example, his last name is actually Schwartz. Schwartz, what's the blank? Said the sergeant as he pointed to the back of my car, to which I reply, a rubber sheep. I can explain why that's there. Basic gist is, to explain how he stayed out of the brig and stayed alive and not beaten up too badly is because he's funny, so they let him live. Like, that's his belief on why he survived. So, Steven over at the Wild Boar blog, which is also a home to this list, has this to say about Skippy. First, a word of intro for those of you that don't really know Skippy. He's a friend of mine that, in a sad state of sobriety, decided to join the army. He is also one of the universe's great agents of chaos and discord. He goes on to say, by the way, Skippy was in PsyOps, and the first time I met him, he was wearing a kilt made of fruit roll-ups. And I'm just going to stop right here for a split second and say, when I was doing my notes for this, I was really somewhat concerned about how just a whole list of things you can't do in the army was going to play out. Like, what's the logistics on this? But then I read that sentence and decided in that moment, I don't care.
You know,
So,
I'm okay with my life choices.
right, like, sorry, friends, you just have to listen to these rules that I've selected.
Yeah,
I did
you can
not
skip
select.
forward later till you hear my voice as the primary, but and then back up a little bit to the beginning, but this is your
Yeah,
life.
this is what we're doing. I did not include all 213 rules because we would be here for 10 years if I did. But I'm going to regale you with some of my favorites. One, I am not allowed to watch South Park when I'm supposed to be working. My proper title is Specialist Schwarz, not Princess Anastasia. I am not allowed to threaten anyone with black magic. Nor am I allowed to add in accordance with the prophecy to the end of answers I give to a question an officer asks me. Not allowed to add pictures of officers I don't like to war crime posters. Which I forgot to mention this earlier. While he was in PsyOps, his actual reason for being in the military is that he is a phenomenal illustrator. He actually works for some sort of game design company now.
Okay.
Um, but or he did in 2015, but so to say that he's not allowed to add pictures of the officers he does not like to criminal posters, keep in mind he probably has the power to very easily do that every day if he wanted. He is not allowed to purchase anyone's soul on government time, nor is he allowed to join the Communist Party, nor is he allowed to join any militia or form one. There's a backstory here on this one that I would love to have, but I do not. He is not allowed out of his office when the president visits Sarajevo.
Oh.
Like, so you're that kind of guy that the president cannot see you. You're problematic.
But wait,
God
wait,
may
hold on
not.
real quick. Do we honestly assume he wouldn't be problematic? Like he would be the highlight of the president's trip, but
Truly,
everybody else
especially
would be
when you
sweating bullets.
consider who was the president at the time while he was in Bosnia.
That was Bush one, right?
I think so.
Okay. Because this is Desert
I'm
Storm.
thinking Desert Storm area. See, he was there in the 90s. I can't get a specific date, but 90s, quite possibly up into the early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
Okay. God may not contradict any of his orders. Rude. He must not taunt the French anymore.
Oh, I need to know the backstory.
Facts. I'm assuming there was a lot of Monty Python comments. He is also not allowed to antagonize the SAS or call them wankers.
To be fair,
Um,
that's their word. What else should he call them?
that is exactly what I thought to myself. I almost even put that in the notes. Well, then what else is he supposed to say? Like, he is never to ask anyone who outranks him if they've been smoking crack. He is never to confuse a Dutch soldier for a French one. He has been banned from telling a German soldier that, quote, we kicked your ass in World War II.
And one.
Not allowed to tell Princess Di jokes in front of the Paras, which is British Airborne.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Um, he has been told he is not allowed to take the batteries out of other soldiers' alarm clocks, even if they do hit the snooze button 40 times. I would have
I,
loved to have been in the office for that conversation.
honestly, I see nothing wrong with this. Cause
Same.
and
I totally agree with
effect.
you.
And if you're
Yeah,
in the
they
same
started
room
it
as me, you got two things. You get your ass out of bed, or I will motivate you by giving you some
to get your
consequences.
ass out of bed. Yes,
Yeah.
like there is a reason, that whole phrase, happy wife, happy life. Ian does not control the alarm clock because I have threatened him more than once with his mortal end. Like I'm gonna take you off the census if I have to listen to your alarm for any length of time.
Mm.
So I would have loved to have been in the office for why he can't do that any further. I would have been on his side wholly, but the more I think of it, I would have been on his side wholly the entire time.
He seems already like the kind of guy that his commanding officers loved, but couldn't love directly to his face. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like the teachers
Yes.
I probably had in college or high school, probably college too, that were just like, I'm going to tell my spouse about you when I get home, but right now I have to keep a straight face and pretend that you are not as funny as you are.
Facts. That is 100% what I assume. Like I would have loved to have been in like um upper ranks meetings in the morning when they talk about all of the things he may or may not have done the day before and what he may not do today. The Irish MPs are not after me frosted Lucky Charms. He is not allowed to let sock puppets take responsibility for any of his actions or command of his post.
But wait a minute. The sock puppets are offering. That's what I'm hearing inferred in that sentence.
That's what I heard. Yeah. So, I mean, nap time. This is one of my favorites. Not allowed to chew gum at formation unless I brought everyone gum.
Oh,
Shortly
enough for the
followed the next
class.
day. Right. Shortly followed by the next day, not allowed to chew gum at formation, even if I did bring enough for everybody.
Well, okay, he can't win for losing. I'm Team
I know,
Skippy.
poor guy. Me too. This is another favorite. Can't have flashbacks to wars I was not in. The the Spanish-American War isn't over, are his words. Uh, Not allowed to ask for the day off due to religious purposes on the basis that the world is going to end more than once. So it's implied he got the day off once.
Honestly, I kind of admire the man's hustle and commitment to the
Me
bit.
too. Me too. Camouflage, body paint is not uniform. Think that through.
I really hope he showed up in, to muster
In all of
completely
his
nude
glory.
with just like splashes of color.
Mm-hmm. So do I. He is not the atheist chaplain, and that one got me so good. I had to stop and think about that for a solid 30 seconds before I
But
was like,
like
oh my God, that's hilarious.
you bring that up and it's like, but why don't the atheists have a chaplain? Because they need somebody to soothe them.
I would assume it's not called chaplain, it's a different job.
Like therapist, but like
Yeah, I guess. Therapist with a comfier couch? I don't know. He is not allowed to trade military equipment for magic beans or sell magic beans during duty hours.
where do you get the
These two are going to
beans?
be loved by you. He. I had similar questions. He is not allowed to quote Full Metal Jacket while at the rifle range. Napalm sticks to kids is not a motivational phrase.
He's not
I
wrong
kept that in
though.
there just for you. I can't.
He's
I was
not
like, I could
wrong.
not do this one. I must do this one. The proper response to a lawful order is not why. May not make posters depicting the leadership's failings of my chain of command. The phrase, it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission, no longer applies to Specialist Schwarz. Inflatable novelties do not entitle me to BAQ or separation pay. So just hold
Wait a
on to
minute.
that one.
Expand on that? I don't know if I'm tracking
I knew
that
you were
one.
gonna say that. Okay, so BAQ, if I remember, look, I'm gonna Google it for you really quick, but I believe BAQ is like basic housing off the
Okay. Like, so if you have a wife, you can move out of the barracks and get a housing
yeah, it's a
allowance.
basic allowance for housing.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah. I didn't keep that in my notes, so it's kind of funny that I don't know why I did that to myself. Uh-oh, now
I don't know why I
I've
didn't
lost
remember
myself.
that one.
Maybe it's gone by different names because BAQ seems weird to me, but I guess quarters, basic allowance out of quarters. But anyway,
I don't know. Go on.
so inflatable novelties do not entitle him to that or separation pay, which I thought was hilarious. Command decisions do not need to be ratified by two-thirds of the majority. I would love to know the backstory here. There is no anti-mine campaign in Bosnia. I have questions.
But should there be an anti-mine campaign?
I think so. Um, I may not line my helmet with tinfoil to block out space mind control lasers. I may not pretend to be a fascist stormtrooper while on duty. Additionally, the MP checkpoint is not an Imperial Stormtrooper roadblock, so I should not tell them you did not need to see my identification, and these are not the droids you're looking for. I can imagine that conversation actually happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I am not to call block my chain of command. I am neither the king nor the queen of cheese. I am not allowed to wear a dress to any army functions, nor am I allowed to bring a drag queen to the battalion formal dance.
Now that just seems bigoted.
Mean, right?
I mean, because I have
I would have,
seen some ISO shows and they clearly do drag.
that's, dude, exactly what I said. I was like, but wait, I've seen some World War II
Did I say
productions on
ISO? I think
ships
I
that
meant
were
USO.
I knew what you meant,
Okay.
but like something had to have happened. He must have asked, you know?
Do you think RuPaul
I
would go with me?
I'm seeing how this. So I was at the liquor store the other day, and I just like I'm seeing the story here. Um, I may not start any situation reports with the phrase, "I recently had an experience I just wanted to write to you about," ever again. If the thought of something makes me giggle for longer than 15 seconds, I am to assume I am not allowed to do that.
That's actually some solid life advice.
I thought that too. I was like, I'm gonna take that one with me.
I mean, because as somebody who has like I've had multiple people, you included, use different wording, um, like acknowledge that the stuff that happens in my brain, just seems like hilarious. And there have been multiple times I have commented, if you ever ask what I'm thinking because I'm laughing and I try to like get you to not to not ask, like to drop it,
Mm-hmm.
please do. Please allow me to drop it because I will decimate
The strength it's
everybody.
taking.
Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
we will all there will be fallout for everybody involved. It'll be hilarious, but probably in hindsight.
After therapy. Yeah. I must not refer to the first sergeant as mom or the commander as dad.
But I bet they had some big mom, big dad energy,
That's what I thought. Like the name mother has been used a time or 10 before in groups like this, so I don't see why not they didn't have mom dad energy. I don't believe that for 1 second.
right?
Inflatable sheep do not need to be displayed during a room inspection. Mhm. Nerve gas is not funny.
No, that's a different kind of gas.
Crucifixes do not ward off officers, and as such, I should not test that.
That sounds like some
Hmm.
trial and error.
Yep. I am not in need of a more suitable host body, and Redneck Zombies is not a military training aid. Are you ready? The
Yep.
proper response to a chemical weapon attack is not, quote, tell my chain of command what I really think about them and then poke holes in their masks. Hmm. A smiley face is not used to mark a minefield. Claymore mines are not filled with yummy candy, and it is wrong to tell new soldiers that they are.
Okay. So there was a meme that cracked me up so hard that is adjacent to this thought process. It was a picture of a landmine and it said, "What is this? Wrong answer only." And one of the comments was, "It's a Roomba that cleans one room at a time."
That's awful. I like that's my favorite answer. I think I'm gonna have to go find more. I wish there was a backstory that I could learn on this one. I am not allowed to mount a bayonet on a crew-served weapon. Imagine that was probably in the process of while he was being told he couldn't. Rodents are not entitled to burial with full military honors, even if they are casualties of war. My commander is not old enough to have fought in the Civil War, and I should stop implying that he did. Vodka, green food coloring, and cool mint Listerine bottles are not a good combination.
That sounds like a great combination.
I, I was going to say, I feel like he's winning with that one. Leave him alone. I am not allowed to bum cigarettes off of anyone under 12.
He tried. He tried.
Yeah, he sure did. I may not trade my rifle for any of the following: cigarettes, booze, sexual favorites, Kalashnikovas, Soviet armed vehicles, small children, or bootleg CDs. Must not mock command decisions in front of the press.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Should not taunt members of the press, even if they are really fat, exceptionally stupid, and working for UPI. My personal favorite on the list, I am not authorized to change national policy in Eastern Europe. What did you do?
Or ask if he could do.
hmm Never ever attempt to correct a Green Beret officer about anything. My other personal favorite, because this is something I would try to do and I know it, I cannot trade my CO to the Russians.
But what if you
Additionally,
ask really nicely and put a bow on him?
and what if you really liked the Russian CO? Not following why this is a problem. Additionally, with not mocking command, I am not to speculate on the penis size of anyone who outranks me.
Like ever or to their face?
Just simply that sentence. Followed by this. Crucifying mice is a bad idea.
But what if they get full military honors afterward?
Okay, so here's the thing. I think that's why that question was asked in the first place, because he came upon some crucified mice.
Now that's just
He didn't do it. He saw somebody else do it.
okay. Now we've got
Yeah.
other issues because if you're torturing animals, I feel
And I
like we
almost didn't say that one, but because it went along with full military honors, I was like, okay,
I
these
mean,
two things were correlate.
they yeah, no, I'm with you
Um,
there.
yeah. Burn pits for classified material are not revel fires, therefore it is wrong to dance naked around them. I cannot arrest children for being rude.
But what can we arrest them for?
Unclear. An EO briefing is probably not the best place to unveil my newest off-color joke. Okay.
Good to know.
Radioactive material should not be stored in the barracks. I should not teach other soldiers to say offensive and crude things in Albanian under the guise of teaching them how to say potentially useful phrases.
Okay, so that does remind me of a side story. I once saw, this was years ago, I saw an interview with Sharon Stone and she was, I think, going through Paris. I think it was in France. Anyhow, but she'd asked somebody to teach her the phrase, "Where's the restroom?" And they taught her a phrase. And she used it several times. And she was telling the interviewer that she indeed did get to the bathroom, but she had a lot of very enthusiastic help getting there. And it was after several times of using this and being in awkward situations that she realized the phrase that she'd been taught was something along the lines of, "I want to sleep with you."
That checks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Two drink limit does not mean first and last, or two kinds of drinks, or that the drinks can be as large as I like. Followed
That's
by
just,
no
that's,
drinking of.
that's a standard military series of problems
Mm-hmm.
and questions.
Right? No drinking of alcoholic beverages does not imply that Jack Daniels in an IV is acceptable. Do you remember earlier when I said he is not allowed to taunt the French?
Yep.
Okay. No dancing in the turret. This especially applies in conjunction with rule number 113, which is there is absolutely no need to emulate the people from Full Monty every time I hear the song Hot Stuff. There you go.
Oh, I love this man.
Should not show up at the front gate wearing part of a Russian uniform, messily drunk. Shortly followed by, even if my commander did it. So, I'm going to state that that line, that rule, even if my commander did it, is a separate rule from should not show up at the front gate wearing part of a Russian uniform, messily drunk. So my assumption is one of two things. Either A, even if my commander did it, implies the Russian or that the commander did it. Or B, even if my commander did it, doesn't mean I'm allowed to, applies to anything.
I kind of
Take your
hope the
pick.
commander was drunk and
Me too.
just playing
That's
uniform
that
swapsies.
that's the story I'm going with. Must not teach interpreters how to make MRE bombs. He is.
Oh, I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure
Mm-hmm.
some of the food can't be palatable.
I know, right? He is not authorized to sell mineral rights. He is not allowed to use a broadsword to disprove the pen is mightier than the sword. He doesn't recommend, nor is he allowed to drink 3 quarts of blue food coloring before a urine test. Nor is he allowed to drink 3 quarts of red food coloring and scream during the same urine test. Personally,
I'm
I love this one. Go ahead.
I as somebody who's eaten a big salad of beets and then panicked 12 hours later in the bathroom, like I kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Putting red Mike and Ikes into a prescription medicine bottle and then eating them all in formation is not funny.
I
Must
disagree.
not create new DoD for that's what I said. Must not create new DoD forms and then insist they be filled out.
Kind of
On
like that.
sports day PT, a wedgie is not considered a legal tackle. The proper way to report to my commander is Specialist Schwarz reporting as ordered, sir, not you can't prove a thing.
Is this man running the Kamchatka?
Dude, the amount of times the Kimchaka came to my mind while writing this list was like, I feel like I understand what was happening on the Kimchaka the whole time. Like they had several Skippies on their list. That's
Yeah.
just where I'm gonna stand on that. Um, the following items do not exist. Keys to the drop zone. A box of grid squares. Blinker fluid. Winter air for the tires, canopy lights, or chem light batteries. I should not assign new privates to guard the flight line. And I love that for him. When detained by the MPs, I do not have the right to a strip search.
That sounds like
No part
something
of
I would tell TSA that Mike is entitled to when we get through.
right. Honestly, to me, what I thought of was the rule can't show up wearing half a Russian military uniform. Like, I feel like that was all one night. You know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah. Um, body checking general officers is not a good idea. Past lives have absolutely no effect on the chain of command. I love this one and I don't have context for it. Take that hat off,
Okay, I'm here for that one.
right? I do not get, quote, that time a month. No, the pants are not optional. He is not allowed to operate a business out of the barracks,
Dude, the number of people I know when my dad was in the service who did make a killing selling things.
right? I love this one. I am not allowed to defect on OPFOR during training missions. And if you're curious, an OPFOR is the opposing force. So, like, you're doing a training mission, one unit is going to be tasked with playing the aggressor, while the other unit is tasked with solving the problem.
And
He
he's just gonna
cannot
be like,
defect to the
"Can
other
I
side.
join you guys?"
Yeah.
I honestly, I love that. I'm here for that.
It's what I would have done. What I would have done on a heartbeat.
It'd be like, "Do you guys
On
have
training
snacks?"
missions, yeah, because we don't have snacks. Yeah, my CO sucks. On training missions, try not to shoot down the general's helicopter, which made me think of the bat bombs in the general's car.
They'd forgotten about that.
I'm not allowed to create new levels of security clearance. I love this whole sentence. Furby, you heard that right, Furby
Yeah.
is not allowed in classified areas. I swear to the gods, I did not make that up. It's actually DoD policy. Those are Skippy's words himself. I have follow-up questions.
Well, probably because you could hide a whole bunch of surveillance equipment in that little.
Space, yeah. I just think it's awesome that the thought has there that it's been done.
Yeah,
We do not charge into battle naked like the Celts. Lame. I am not a lesbian trapped in a man's body.
prove it.
On official army, right? On official army documents, my race is not other, nor is it secretariat in the third. Okay. And I love this one so much. My chain of command has neither the time nor the inclination to hear about what I did with 6 boxes of fruit roll-ups.
Made a kilt.
He sure did. When operating a military vehicle, I may not attempt something I saw in a cartoon.
I mean,
I am
that's good
not
life
the
advice.
emperor of anything. I know, right or bad, whatever. I'm not the emperor of anything. I must not taunt officers in the throes of nicotine withdrawal with cigarettes. May not challenge officers to, quote, meet me on the field of honor at dawn. This happens more than one would think. Can't make s'mores while on guard duty, and I think that's rude.
I mean, but is he staying focused on what he should be staying focused on? Because I would vote that you could do both.
That's what I said. Our Humvees cannot be assembled into giant battle bots. Yeah. The proper response to a briefing is not, that's what you think. The Masons, and the Gray Aliens are in fact not in the chain of command. I
Okay.
shouldn't take incriminating photos of my chain of command or use Photoshop to create incriminating photos of my chain of command.
I need to see
I
these
am not allowed to give
Photoshops.
tattoos. Me too. I am also not allowed to sing Henry VIII. I am until verse 68 ever again.
There's 68 verses.
Evidently. He learned 68 verses,
So
if there
now
is,
I
right?
need to understand, where did those verses originally go? How did he know are you allowed to do 57 verses? Is it the 58th that's the tipping point?
Like, we're gonna have to be told, I think is what's happening. We're gonna have to do some research on that. One of my other favorites, not allowed to lead a coup during training missions, which probably directly correlates to not being allowed to defect
I mean,
during
look,
training missions.
because he's probably thinking, I bet we could all use a little bit of training in
Right.
going against a coup.
Exactly.
Because you
This
don't
is
want to be
gonna help.
stuck in a real situation with mutiny and treason, and then like this is the first time you're running into it. He's doing
Mm-hmm.
the Lord's work.
I have about 10 more. Do you want me to go through the rest of them?
Please.
Okay. Um, I should not confess to crimes that took place before I was born. My chain of command is not interested in why I just happen to have a kilt, an inflatable sheep, and a box of rubber bands in the back of my car.
But was it
Must
the,
not val
I was going to ask if it was the fruit roll-up kilt, or
I
was there
assume it's the
another
fruit
one?
roll-up kilt. I assume it's the fruit roll-up kilt. Must not valiantly push officers onto hand grenades to save the squad. Despite the confusing similarity, the names the safety dance and the safety briefing are never to be combined.
That's a misstep.
I know. To conquer the earth with an army of flying monkeys is a bad long-term goal to give the re-enlistment NCO. I love this one. Do not write up false gigs on HMMWV so basically don't write up false things when you're turning in the vehicles. Like, for example, broken clutch pedal. Or number three turbine has frequent flameouts. The flux capacitor emits a loud whine when engaged. Not allowed to get shot.
That's always a good reminder.
The chicken and rice, just bear with me for a second. The chicken and rice MRE is not a personal lubricant. Skippy wanted it noted that for the record, this was not something he ever attempted or considered. It was just something he heard about on dinner that he
Oh,
was
geez.
attending on the 22nd of September 2001, and it was just so obscene he had to include it. He is not allowed to play into the deluded fantasies of the civilians are, quote, hearing conversations from the NSA, FBI, CIA, and the KGB due to the microchip the aliens implanted in their brain. And honestly, I feel like that's just being mean. If he
Right?
wants to play into their fantasies, let him.
They're already there. He's just
Right.
rubbing their back.
He's just, I'm here to help you, you know? Air sickness bag is to be used for air sickness only. Also not from Skippy, but he learned that line at the same dinner on September 22nd,
Oh, I'm
2001.
uncomfortable with that.
You're welcome. I decided to end on those.
Thanks.
You're welcome. There are several more, but I like said I would have been here all day, so I figured I would regale you with my personal favorites.
I'm not going to look at a chicken and rice meal the same now.
You're welcome.
And I'm grateful that
Definitely
I
not
don't,
going to buy any MREs.
we have a couple in our go
Oh, I'm
bag.
sorry. Hmm. Okay.
So I have that going for me, which
Yeah.
is good, I guess, to know that it's versatile. Um,
I mean, yeah.
well,
So that's
oh,
the story of Specialist Skippy.
I like it. I love that for me. I really do. I know a chunk of time ago for my story, like I kind of did the real story of Mulan. So for whatever reason, I decided to kind of do the real story of Pocahontas.
Ooh, okay.
Are you familiar with the authentic background of her?
I would not say familiar would be the word I would use. I just know that once again Disney lied to us about all of it.
Hmm.
Um I know very, very little. Like not I couldn't I probably know a sentence of truth. You know what I mean? Like I've
Mm,
heard about it, I've read a little about it, but I don't know enough to speak to it.
that's fair. My sources are a book that you will probably hear mentioned repeatedly in upcoming stories. It's Black AF History by Michael Harriot.
Oh, I want that book. Have you finished it? Do you
I
love
finished
it?
it. It is good. It is great. You're gonna love it.
Okay,
It's gonna be
it's
amazing.
so high on my list. Okay.
Okay. Let me get through all of my stories that I'm gonna glean from it before you start reading it yourself because I'll be so bummed.
I will, I promise. I have another book of sources in my mind that is not that, so I
Okay,
will
great.
take to that book.
And then I went back to basics and I went to the National Park Service and found a piece on Pocahontas.
Of course you did.
And then I got another one on Captain John Smith. So, we ready to play?
Honestly, are we funding the National Park Service or should they be sending us some sort of gift? At least a hat,
I
you
mean,
know, like something.
little whistle.
Or maybe one of those little cards that gets us into the national parks.
That's really what I just want. Just a
I
lifetime
agree,
membership.
because they are our most used source.
Yeah.
That in the bathroom wall.
That's just what I accuse you of getting for a source. Not that may not actually be your source. Um, so okay, when it comes to Disney, like you said earlier, Disney lied to us because yeah, story,
Disney,
money,
because dollar
capitalism,
bills.
Disney. But what I will tell you is around 1596, a little girl, and I'm going to butcher how I say this because I couldn't figure out a way to get it pronounced. Amunut. It's Amou or Amonute. So Amanute. I don't use it,
Okay.
it doesn't pop up a lot, but she's born to Wahun Seneca, who is the paramount chief of all of the Powhatan Nation. And I will pause a moment because Black AF history absolutely nails it out of the park because Disney taught us, Disney and a lot of white people sources, that his name is just Chief Powhatan.
No, he was the chief of the Pocahontas.
Okay, yes, but what was his
Yeah, that's
name?
like the one thing I know. I
Okay.
don't remember.
Oh, well, I just said it seconds ago, but Joachim Seneca. And like, but anyhow, like everybody was like, you watch the movie, you read the sources, and it was like, Chief Powhatan, Chief Powhatan. And it was like, well, but
You know,
no.
I'm sorry, that just speaks to white history right there. Like, we couldn't call them by their actual name. Like, we couldn't be bothered to learn how to pronounce their actual name, so we just called them by their title.
Well, okay. And so Michael Harriot makes the joke of like, we shouldn't let white people name things because we're awful at it. And
Facts.
honestly,
New York, New York.
right, like, honestly. And we just put new because we had a York.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So white people. Um, Now, at its height, the Powhatan chiefdom has a population of 25,000 people or so, and it includes more than 30 Algonquin speaking tribes. And each of these tribes has their own chief, and he is like head chief over chiefs. Now, Amanut is giving a private name of Matoaka, and publicly she's called Pocahontas as kind of a nickname. And from what I'm able to understand, Pocahontas is like playful one because she's very gregarious and curious and very animated and playful. Now, I'm I couldn't necessarily understand why you would have a private name and why you would have, like a bit more known one. I mean, it kind of harkened back to me of not telling fairies your real name, but I recognize that that's a Gaelic tradition versus an indigenous American. So I know I'm
I
combining
wonder,
thoughts.
well, maybe not. I wonder if maybe it's just like, you know how you have your this is going to be a really oversimplified sentence, but you know how you have your family nickname
Yeah.
and then you have your out in the world name? It could be something just as simple as that. Like, this is what my mother calls me, but no one else calls me this.
Uh, I guess I got hung up on the private name. Okay. So Matoaka, she's the daughter of Wahun Seneca. And the way things seem to flesh out is custom dictates that Pocahontas would have um, stayed with her mom and they would have gone to live in another village after her birth.
Right, it would be her mother's home village, right? Is the way
Yeah.
that's like the one thing I know for sure that mom goes back home.
Yeah. Mom goes back home. Now, Wahun Seneca is still taking care of them, paying for everything. And then once Matoaka is weaned, then she would go to live with her father and her half siblings. And her mom, if still living, there were some discrepancies because we don't truly know a ton. Um, if she was still living, would be free to remarry.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, that is a I think a pretty common correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand this to be a pretty common indigenous to at least to America type
Mm. I,
belief
I
in
cannot
reference to
confirm nor deny.
chiefdoms.
Now, we're going to fast forward to April of 1607. There's a group of English colonizers. They set ashore on what would be the Jamestown settlement. And Wahum Seneca, he sends a welcoming party to greet them. He sends his best warriors and his finest arrows. And he'd done this with
I
all
love
of the,
this welcoming party.
right? He'd kind of given the same welcoming party to the other people who had tried settling. But eventually, like he kind of hits a stalemate, and his warriors decide to like go back home and eat, and the colonizers like set up shop. Now the settlers who came over, they're not necessarily equipped for this journey. Like England,
What?
England sent their best. So first off, if you're sending a group of people to found a colony, what skills would they have?
I would hope they can build. I would hope they could be lumberers. I would hope they could find food like hunters, and maybe some sort of doctor, preferably someone that can sew, and probably a preacher, because that seems to be right. Did
Okay.
they send any of those? Maybe you have a hunter and a few miners.
Black AF history describes the group as a bunch of wealthy aristocrats who are pretty
This checks.
ill-equipped. And none of them really know how to establish a colony. None of them are prepared for this nonsense. None of them attempt to plant food. Now, that may or may not be the worst idea because the region was in a severe drought and it had been like the worst drought for the longest time in like that chunk of history. I think it was 400 years. Anyhow, it was a big drought. So there's not a lot of water. Now, they also arrive way too late to actually plant food, but they don't even try. So on the way to the colony, because we're going to back up a second, while they're still in the boats on the water coming to the colony, they got Captain John Smith on board, and he's kind of a scuzzbucket and tries to attempt a mutiny.
I will not have you call John Smith a scuzz bucket.
Why? You got a worse word I can use?
No, just for the love of the movie. We all love John Smith. Don't call him
No,
a
we
scuzz bucket.
okay. I
We
I
don't
have
love John Smith. I'm kidding.
about to say like he's a scuzz bucket.
He's a scuzz bucket.
So
My guess is if, and also if he's starting to rise or trying to have a mutiny, there's more to the story here, anyways.
I mean, I don't have a lot of positive things to say about him, and you're going to hear the diatribe get
Yeah.
worse and worse as this goes on. So not only is he arrested for, treason, he's also being threatened to be hanged once he gets there. And like, do not pass go, do not unpack your bags, do not attempt to plant corn.
Why didn't they just chuck him off the boat?
I feel like I don't know. Maybe they wanted something quicker. I don't know. But as
Okay.
soon as they get to the colony, they kind of unseal the envelope and da 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 da, he's the leader of the colony. Like neener neener, you can't hang your boss,
Ha!
which
Just checks.
and so it's now Pocahontas, Matoaka. I'm gonna try to stick to Matoaka, even though we know she's Pocahontas. She's about 11 years old,
Matoaka's a beautiful name anyway.
isn't it? I don't feel like I can go wrong with either. Um, and it's now winter time. Captain John Smith, who is perhaps as famous as Pocahontas. I mean, you have feels for the Mel Gibson voiceover.
I'm mostly kidding. I actually don't have feels for the Mel Gibson voiceover. He's
All
not my
right.
favorite. He's not Aladdin, nor is he Prince Eric, so
Okay.
yeah.
Well, so John Smith gets captured by Wahun Seneca's brother. And once captured, Smith is kind of marched through several Powhatan Indian towns before he's brought to the capital and presented to Wahun Seneca. And as Smith tells it, he's brought in front of Chief Powhatan because we're talking his narrative now. So I switched names because source,
We can't be afforded to learn his actual name.
because white people. And there's two large stones that are placed on the ground. Think cartoon. And Smith's head is forced on them, and a warrior raises a club to smash out his brains. And just like the cartoon, Matoaka rushes in, places her head over him, stops the execution. Now, whether this happened or not, that part is debated. You'll get historians on either side, like vehemently going back and forth on this. Now, one theory posits that this was a elaborate adoption ceremony. So Smith, maybe he didn't know that his life was not in danger, but his life was not in danger, despite feeling like he's about to get his brains introduced to the rock. And it
Oh, so it's
afterward,
like symbolism. You have to die to your old self to be part of our nation.
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
But Wahun Seneca tells Smith that he's part of the tribe. And in return for two great guns and a grindstone, Wahun Seneca gives Smith a village called Chapahawasik on the York River and would ever esteem him as his own son, Nantakud. So he gives him an Indian name, gives him
And then
a
he gives
town
him
to command.
Nantucket.
Well, like Chapahawasik or I don't. He gives him a town. I should have just said gives him a town on the river and like skipped over that me trying to butcher it.
No, I think you were saying his new given name totally sounded like Nantucket.
No, I guess I could. We could butcher it and be white people like that, but it's Nantaka Takuout. So it's Nan Taquo. So Nantakout.
Okay. I'll not ask.
Yeah, I should have really tried figuring that one out. Um,
I feel like you did, and I'm just a jackass.
I feel like I probably could have done more and like at least had a Google voiceover say it and then just like moved my lips as it played over the speakers, but I didn't. Um, so either way, this does kind of play into the whole he was adopted kind of deal, right? Meaning that his life was never in danger, even though that looked pretty dangerous. So he returns to Jamestown and Wahun Seneca sends gifts of food for the starving English. So he basically puts them on food stamps, like a whole food program, right? They get their SNAP
Okay.
benefits. Suddenly, they're trying to help out. And these envoys, like as they send food to help out, are like Pocahontas or Matoaka comes with like all of the food deliveries, right? And
Hmm.
they view her as a sign of peace to the English because she's doing all these things. And on her
And
visits
she's
to the
cheerful and she's happy and she's gorgeous and she's all the
yeah.
things that you would want to see. Yeah.
And so like
Okay.
there's even reports of her doing cartwheels as, they're dropping off the food.
Oh, so she's a cutie patootie.
Yeah, I mean she's 11 and she's playing. I love this
Mm-hmm.
for her. Now, the English know that Matoaka is Wahun Seneca's favorite daughter, and they see her as a very important person. At one point, she's sent to negotiate for the release of Powhatan prisoners. And according to John Smith, it was and for Matoaka alone that they actually released them. So they love her so much. They're like, you know what? You could have asked for anything. We'll give you what you asked for, kind of deal. But it's here that things kind of start to fall apart and go downhill
Of course.
because again, there is a drought that has been pretty impactful to the entire region. And while Wahun Seneca has been giving from his stores to try to keep these group of white people alive, this whole drought's decimated what he's got access to. And the colonists still aren't able to grow enough food for themselves. Like they're doing
Because
things
they're
like
silly white people.
they're growing tobacco instead,
This checks. We have to be able to smoke, not eat.
right? Yeah. So they come to Wahun Seneca and they're trying to bargain for food only to find out that Wahun Seneca's like, no, I'm done. I'm done trading. You want to give me beads for food? Like, we don't have enough food for ourselves. Like, we don't want your stupid beads. Go kick rocks.
No, go trade with someone else.
And so the settlers end up demanding food during negotiations. At one point, like one of the things say that they make him an honorary British citizen. And he's like, thanks.
I
And
don't
he's like,
want that. You can keep it.
yeah, well
Thanks, I hate it.
now that you're a citizen, we demand that you support your fellow citizen kind of deal. And he's kind of
Mm.
like, I think it's time for the street lights are on. I think I gotta go home now.
Mm-hmm.
And so he excuses himself and his family, including Pocahontas or Matoaka, and they go into the woods, unbeknownst to Smith and his men. They just kind of like Irish goodbye.
Oh,
Now,
I love a good Irish goodbye.
according to Smith, that night Matoaka returns and says that her father intends to kill him.
Oh.
So dad's big mad.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to keep his own people alive, and adopted son is kind of being what I call him a skis
Bit
bag.
problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Smith had already suspected that there was something wrong, but he's super grateful that Matoaka is willing to risk her life to save his again, because again, he may not have recognized that the first time wasn't a real threat. But afterwards, she disappears into the woods and she never sees him again in Virginia.
I like that you clarified that in Virginia.
Yeah. Now, Wahun Seneca, he's like, you know what? I'm tired of these white people. So he moves his capital further away from colonists to protect his own, right? Now, in the fall of
Smart
six,
move.
I don't blame him. The neighborhood's
Yeah, me either.
gone to pot, so you got to move, right?
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, these are things
So
when the white
it's
folks move in.
and that's what made the Black AF history book so good is he like throws so much shade at the colonists and uses all of the language that you hear. Like it's beautiful. Um,
But he's not wrong though.
no. Okay, so it's 1609 and this is probably my favorite part of the entire story. John Smith is sleeping on a boat on a pile of gunpowder.
Because that's smart.
I mean, look, I don't understand the sleeping arrangements to know that that was probably there's not enough room at the end, but there's enough room on a pile of gunpowder. But anyhow, he's taking a nap and it somehow catches fire and it burns his groin. And he saves himself by jumping in the water, almost drowning.
He doesn't know how to swim. Please tell me he doesn't know how to swim.
Unclear, but some
Dang.
reports say it was like a 10-inch patch of burn.
Oh, okay.
So after his
That's
unfortunate Reenie
news.
roast, he decides to take his toys and go home to England.
I would too.
It's now is as good a time as any to go home and get some cream. Now,
Get some lotion. I gotta go.
yep, it's 1610. Matoaka marries Kocoum, which I'm excited actually existed. Now, the Englishman William Strachey, at least I'm butchering white people's names too. They describe, look, I'm an equal opportunity butcherer of names. Call me Starbucks.
I need you to put that at least I'm butchering white people's names too in the notes.
Equal opportunity, right?
Go Starbucks, go.
So this white dude describes him as kind of a private captain, right? Now, Kocoum is not a chief or a counselor, um, but being that he is a quote private captain unquote, like he's got some authority, he's got some command over people. Now, he has some status, but there's some things that suggest that because he's not very high, that Matoaka probably married him for love. And at this point, she's still young because this is only what 1610 and it
So
was
she's 15.
yeah. So she's still young, okay? Now like 14, 15. So she's also not Kokum isn't in the same tribe. So kind of just next
Oh,
tribe
I
over
didn't know
kind of
that.
deal.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So they believe he was a member of the Patawomic tribe, but he could have also been one of Wahun Seneca's bodyguards. So that could have been how they met, how they,
Oh,
who
right, because
knows?
there was like 30 different Algonquin tribes within his nation,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, she still remains pretty close to daddy because she's the favorite daughter. And so she has freedom to choose as who she married, as did all the other women in the Powhatan Society. Now, things in Jamestown aren't going so well because it's about this time that they go through the starving years.
Hmm.
And they start resorting to
New weight loss trend.
cannibalism to survive. And in Black AF history, they talk about how there's evidence that pregnant women were unalived during this time.
Oh my.
So, yeah, those are our founding fathers.
This sounds right.
I know, right? Look at us. So, the Pat Nation, they've got
This
even
is why
less
we don't
reason.
get invited to the cookout.
Honestly, because you can't trust the meat we're bringing. This is why
And
we're
there's
relegated to
mayonnaise
plates.
in the potato salad
It's like you can bring napkins and soft drinks.
and ice.
Maybe.
The
We'd figure out a way
good
to mess
stuff.
that up. So, 1613, a dude named Captain Samuel Argall, he discovers that Matoaka's living with the Patawomic, and he decides to be a bit nefarious, and he works out a deal with the chief of the Patawomic to set a trap to kidnap her. And after she's captured, she's brought to Jamestown, and eventually she's taken to a place that they assume that she was taken to a place called Henrico, which is an English settlement near what's now Richmond. And
Oh, okay. I've heard of this place before.
oh, really? Okay. So
Yeah.
Wahun Seneca, he's informed, hey, your daughter's been kidnapped and we have a ransom. And he's like, great. What do you want? You want, oh, you wanted people? I'll give you people. Oh, you want people and food? Great. What do you, okay, great. Whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have my favorite kid. I will give you what you need. Now,
But why can't you take Susan?
yeah, really, we've been trying to get rid of her
She will not marry the man I've chosen. Oh, wait, never mind. She gets to pick her bride or her husband. Good for her.
or whomever.
Or her
Now,
bride. Yeah, live your life, Susan.
Matoaka, while she's being held against her will, they give her religious instruction. And
Of course.
she
Because why not?
converts and she meets this widower named John Rolfe, who is famous for, introducing the cash crop of tobacco to Virginia. Now, it's probably because of him that they're selling or farming more tobacco than they are food, because who needs to eat?
Pregnant women. Oh,
Well,
never mind. Never mind.
they've
There
been
are none.
smoked.
Oh,
Sorry, smoking tobacco. Sorry, you know what?
Terare is their forefather. No, he was
Well,
after
that
them.
was
Never
after.
mind.
He was in the 17. Anyhow,
I just caught myself. I'm
you're
sorry.
good. You're good. Now, it's the English accounts that say Matoaka or Pocahontas met John Rolfe. They fell in love and got married. Maybe,
Of course.
maybe. But might I mention that she's still married to Kocoum?
I was just
So,
gonna ask, did I miss something about Cocoam?
yeah. But Kocoum realizes that divorce was inevitable, and I guess divorce was a thing in Powhatan society. And Powhatan or Wahum Seneca gets sent word that Matoaka and Ralph are going to marry. And so I guess he just assumed that the divorce was a foregone conclusion. And so she's divorced and she consents to the proposed marriage. And Wahum Seneca is like, well, okay, I guess. And he actually sends her uncle to represent the family at the wedding.
Oh, okay.
So it's uncomfortable, but there's family there for her. Now, she converts completely to Christianity in 1614 and she's baptized Rebecca. And then in
I
April,
hate that for her.
I do too, because now we've got like four names for her. And I still want to keep calling her Matoaka. In April, she
Continue
and John
calling
get
her
married.
Matoaka.
What?
Continue calling her by your favorite name. I think that's what she would have wanted. Why,
Maybe.
like, why does she have to have so many names?
I don't know.
Lame.
White people. Um,
Freaking white people.
so their marriage leads to what's called as the Peace of Pocahontas. And it kind of puts the kibosh on some of the conflicts that are going on between the English and the Powhatan tribes. They also end up having a son named Thomas.
You think maybe she chose to marry him knowing that would be the case?
That she did it for her people, like
Yeah.
that she was a peace cow.
I don't
I
want
don't
to call her
know.
peace cow. I just want to say that, like, she probably saw the situation and was like, okay, well, if we're united, like, if we have a common union,
Yeah.
perhaps things will stop. And the most common of those unions is marriage. Like, what if it was just as simple as that? Like, done.
Okay. Maybe. Maybe.
We'll never know, but that was the first thought that came to my mind.
I mean, I kind of like it, so we'll roll with it just as a
Okay.
factor. Now, shortly after, she has the baby, it's 1616. The Ralph family decides to go to England, like you do. And Matoaka is invited or attends a masque at least, where she sits near King James I and Queen Anne.
Oh,
So, I mean, she's rubbing elbows with the peeps. Now, eventually the Ralph family moves to a place in rural Brentford where Matoaka runs into or again encounters Captain John Smith. Now, Smith had not forgotten about Matoaka. He'd even written a letter to Queen Anne describing all the help that she had done for the English in Jamestown in the early years. And
okay.
so, despite kind of singing her praises, he'd been in the same area for months and never made a move to come say hi.
Ick.
Yeah, right. So
Maybe he's covered in syphilis.
he should be. Or maybe it just doesn't work anymore because of the gunpowder.
Oh, maybe he's just embarrassed and that's why he only sends a letter.
Maybe the syphilis was or maybe the gunpowder was a syphilis treatment. And he didn't want to mention it, so he just said he was asleep on the pile. I don't know. Anyhow, that's weird tangent.
We're
So
speculating.
yeah, so he writes. or he writes that she was so he does visit her and he writes that she was so overcome with emotion that she couldn't speak and turned away from him. And then upon gaining composure, she reprimands him for the manner in which he treated her father and her people.
That a girl.
And then and like I couldn't find the source that said it, but I swear to you in one source I read that she slapped him. Um, and I kind of hope she
Get it.
did. I kind of hope
Me
she did.
too.
Now, she reminded him at one point of how, and he uses the word Powhatan as opposed to Wahun Seneca, because again, like he can't remember the name of his adopted dad. But she says, hey, my dad welcomed you as a son, and you called him father. Now, she in going through all this, she says that she is a stranger in this land and makes the overture to call Smith father. And he kind of refuses and won't allow her to show any that sort of familiarity. And this makes her angrier and reminded him how he had not been afraid to threaten every one of her people except for her. Like, so she's like really doubling down on this. Like, look, I'm alone. I am scared. I am lonely. I'm just looking for some kind of camaraderie. And this Broseph is just continuing to issue red flags like he's got an entire factory.
This checks.
Now, she had said that the settlers had reported that Smith had died, as opposed to just leaving after he burned his weenie.
You have to word it like that. That was perfect. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. It's not even in my notes. This is just off the cuff, out of my heart. Um,
Oh,
but she had
burned
said
weenie.
that her dad, Wahun Seneca, had suspected that Smith was still alive, saying that your countrymen will lie much, which is just sad and depressing.
Yeah.
Now, March of 1617, the Ralph family was ready to return to Virginia, and after traveling down the Thames River, Matoaka falls seriously ill and is taken ashore. And in the town of Gravesend, Matoaka dies of an unspecified illness. And historians believe that it could have been an upper respiratory ailment like pneumonia, and others think that she could have died of dysentery. She was 21 when she was buried at St. George's Church, March 21st, 1617. And John Rolfe returns to Virginia, but
And
leaves
couldn't take her home.
he buries her there. He doesn't bring her home to be
What a
buried at home.
dick move.
Well, I mean, it's a body, it's the 1600s,
Okay.
smell, disease,
3 months on the open ocean.
right? Like,
Okay. I
it's
get it.
is it desirable? No. Is it understandable?
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted the romantic idea that he brings her home to her people.
Yeah, he doesn't. But he leaves the young Tomas there, or Thomas there, and because apparently he's not doing so well, so he leaves Thomas with relatives in England. And it's within a year that Wahun Seneca dies, and the peace of Pocahontas begins to slowly unravel.
Of course.
Yep. But that sad, depressing tale, aside from John Smith burning his weenie, is the story of the real Pocahontas.
I love hearing the real story. I'm sad it's always heartbreaking when someone gets removed from their people that is wants to be with their people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's one thing to be like, I want out, peace, and to leave and live your life on your choice elsewhere, but then to not get to come home.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
And she was only 21.
Yeah, I was hoping she was gonna live to be the next grandmother tree, you know?
Yeah. And she kicked it at 86 years old, you know?
Yeah. Having slapped many a white man.
But yeah,
I love that. Thank you for shedding light on yet another story that I grew up knowing the entire soundtrack to.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. Hmm, you're amazing.
I think you're amazing, truly. Like, I think I'm team Angie in this setup.
That's hilarious because I'm Team Theresa. We're such a good pair.
Right? Our self-deprecation knows no bounds, but it honors the other, so here we are.
I'd say that makes us a hell of a team.
Hmm. If you've enjoyed the story and you're thinking, hot damn, I can't wait to see what this incredible team pulls off next week. I can't wait for the hijinks. I can't wait for the next specialist Skippy and his list of do not do's, or how Teresa dismantles another childhood favorite. Rate,
Yet
review,
again.
subscribe, because it's those reviews that actually allow more people to find us so that you can be able to find your people when you talk about the weird thing that you just learned on a podcast and somebody else goes, yeah, actually, I heard that too.
I love that. I love that when that happens.
Right? And you can
Hmm.
commiserate over your fear of episode 19. And on that note,
Terrare.
goodbye. Ferrari.
Goodbye. I will never say his name right. I hear it in my mind right, but it never translates. Like, ever.